Testing 1, 2, 3. This will be the December 2nd, 2015 Community Redevelopment Agency meeting.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency of Satellite Beach, December 2nd, 2015, approximately 6:05 p.m. Will you please join Member Gott for a moment of silence and the pledge?
Just joining in a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to members' comments.
I don't have anything.
Mark?
Nothing.
Okay.
I just want to say I've been going down behind Shell Street, looking at the project over there, and it's going to be wonderful when it's done. But it's really great improvements for what was there. So I just wanted to commend staff. I talked to Bert last night, and I let him know too that I appreciated all he did, being on site all that time and making sure everything went right. So I think it's a great project.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up on Dom's comment, the parking down there on that south wall has worked out wonderful. I was down there, it was last Sunday afternoon for just a little bit, and they're just all lined up there. It's plenty of clearance to get through, so it worked out great on the plan. So it's very nice to see. But that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4, Executive Director's Report. Courtney?
Thank you, Chairman. Regarding Shell Street, I just wanted to give you the specifics of when it will be complete. Right now, we are the AT&T work is getting done to underground those utilities. FPL is supposed to be out there next week to complete their portion of that. The property owner who received the facade grant is, I think, tomorrow putting in their grease traps, and then the restrooms will go in. So we're expecting that project to be completely done by mid-January. Just wrapping up little smaller things. We are trying to schedule a kind of a opening party for January 28th at 5 o'clock. So we'll send you out a formal notice when we get everything finalized for that. And then we'll also be inviting the Women's Club for that as well, and we're trying to order that sign and get that done as well. As you recall, they provided the donation for that project, and part of their agreement with them was to put a sign that thanking them for their donation. With regard to A1A, we have a public meeting coming up, and that meeting is scheduled for the 10th. Here at the Civic Center. That is not actually the city's meeting, that is DOT's meeting, so they sent out their notices to what they consider the affected parties, and these are people who are directly affected by the improvements, so basically people on A1A. And anyone who's got, I think we're affecting 2 access points, so those residents and property owners will be invited to that meeting. And they will be presenting all of the improvements that we have agreed to at that meeting, get input, and hopefully we don't receive, any negative feedback, so that we can move forward into final engineering design. And with that, that's all I got.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Executive Director? Thank you. That's just a report from us. It's not.
Well,
Well,
just
from the
on the
floor.
agenda, there wasn't any citizen comment.
Right, for this meeting?
Oh, yeah, I don't mind if she...
That's fine. Let me do this. Close the Executive Director's report out, and then I'll allow citizens' comments. Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. I'll just open the floor for citizens' comments.
Is that not a part of the regular agenda?
It should be. I don't know why it dropped off, so we'll check into that. Yeah, that's a mistake of ours. We apologize for that.
Okay. I've been, like everybody else, looking at the Shell Street project, and it looks amazing. It's plenty of room, it's great access. That corner that was always problematic is so much better. I will say, though, that the front of the facade is very disappointing. I'm only bringing this up now because the project's not finished, so I'm hoping that there is more to come. The color scheme is peach and aqua, which I think they borrowed from the 1970s. I just think that for the amount of money CRA invested in that property, the front of the building needs to look a lot better. It doesn't look any better to me. It's got a fresh coat of paint, and I'm hoping that they have some additional work to do in the front that is yet to take place. But that's where the money view is. Thank you.
Thank you. Floor is still open for any other public comment? Hearing none, bring it back to the board and move on to,
I would just like to comment that I agree with Joanne's comments. I kind of expected there to be more of a facelift on the front as well as on the back.
the color scheme obviously was within the palette that was
Yeah.
used for the.
I mean, that's their
CRA.
choice,
Right.
you know. But the front of the building had the stucco improvements, you know, the treatment on the sides to just give it a little bit, I mean, it's a 1960s building, so there's not a lot you can do to a concrete block square rectangle building, but they did that, and we were seal coating the parking lot. There's not a lot of areas to put landscaping. Remember, we had that discussion, we tried, and then we decided to concentrate some landscaping on the A1A plans, which we did. So we looked at that area and tried to put as much, you know, into that area as we could. Again, it's just a tight spot. There's not a lot of room on that site, and they have uses on that site that just require quite a bit of parking. So if we want to have the restaurants and things like that need all the parking, we can't take up parking spaces with landscaping and things like that, so.
But their paint scheme is within code of the CRA, the colors and so forth?
Yes,
they pick?
yes.
Okay.
When the A1A project is done, is there going to be some landscape that's going to be done in that right-of-way that's going to at least enhance the front of that place?
We
I mean,
tried.
I realized that, you know, it was not something that we were going to be able to do under this project that we just completed, but it's part of the big long-term project that
Right.
there's going to be some enhancements out
We
there.
have the pedestrian refuges, you know, that's a little bit further down on the south side of that building, you know, that has the landscape, little islands in it, so we tried to do that. But again, it's just a tight spot, you know.
He's done most of the renovation, though, has been in the back, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dollars spent, I heard, I'm not sure if this is a accurate figure, but they put over 200,000 in there already. And our match was what, 50, was it?
65.
65, okay. So I know he's put out some dollars into it, whether we see it from the front or not, I guess, was his choice of where to put it. So he's met all his obligations, correct?
Well, there's just only so much you can do to the front, you know, I mean, it's,
But from our end, from the
Right.
board's end, he has,
he's done what we agreed to at the beginning of the project, yes.
any further questions from anybody else? Okay, moving on to agenda item 5, discuss, make a recommendation on the City of Satellite Beach Community Redevelopment Plan Amendment. Courtney?
Thank you, Chairman. We have a revised remaining projects list for you. The original one in your packet had some projects that now we think are, you know, Pelican Beach Park has been done, so we wanted to move that to the completed projects. And then we also had Shell Street, which will be done by the time the City Council approves this plan amendment. So we're going to move that to the completed projects area. And if you look at your full plan, if you go to page 6, you'll see the list of completed redevelopment projects, and we'll add Pelican Beach Park and Shell Street to those bottom projects.
And the landscaping.
And the landscaping, yes, ma'am. Okay, so when the city council sees that, that will be added. And I just wanted to make sure that you are aware. It's really, it's actually good that we're kind of keeping track of all the accomplishments, and I think that's what Member Gott wanted when we started editing it, to make sure that when we get done with the project, we move it over to the completed project, so people can see the progress that we're making, because we really have done quite a few projects in the last 2 years, and we want to be recognized for that. The remaining projects, we go through that. The first is that the beach access signage project. This is a project that was designed by or conceived by the advisory board. What they would like to do is look at our existing signage that we have at like Grant Street and some of the other beach, like DeSoto and Grant, and retrofit those to include a more permanent way of showing that it's a beach access, and then adding a similar signage to the rest of the beach access points. So people recognize that there's a beach access there and there's a consistent look down our road. We were concerned, the staff, because if you looked at Grant and DeSoto, that used to have a banner. Banners don't last very long in the beach side because of just the wind and the weather and things like that. So to make it more cost efficient, we are asking the signage company to look at a permanent structure that we would not have to change out every time it's frayed or faded. So that project is funded at $24,000 this year, which would include the design and the beginning. Any remaining funds would just be moved over to the installation. The installation is funded for 16-17, and that's at $40,000, which is a very, very inexpensive sign program. Signs can be very expensive. When I first was asked, what this would cost, and I looked at how many access points we had, I said about $140,000. So we're asking them to look at a very inexpensive format for the signs. So we can, and if we come into a situation where we don't have enough budgeted, then we would probably recommend coming in with a different funding source to help pay for that. And maybe look at some grant funds, if there's any grant funds available for things like that. Is there any questions on the beach access signage?
I don't have one on the signage coming in on the north and south sides of the city.
Mm-hmm.
On the south side of the city, we're kind of somewhat constrained by Volunteer Way and the wall that's there. What are we doing as far as those signs go? Do we have plans to enhance what's there now?
Are you
Especially
talking
on
about
the
the ones
south
that were
side.
designed by the students?
Yeah.
What we were looking at is looking to replicate those in a recycled material that would last a lot longer and have more vibrant colors. So we could just keep that and then add the landscaping and things like that around it to make it look nicer and a little bit bigger, maybe put it on a platform and put it up a little bit. So we were looking at that. I don't think that's really a CRA project per se, but we were looking at that as a city project.
Okay.
As well as the sign on DeSoto traveling east.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Because I think for those, especially people who grew up here and know who designed those projects, those signs, they're kind of sentimental.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people would be very upset if we got rid of those, in my opinion. That's the gist I get from talking to a lot of people.
And kind of that's what
I
I
would
was
be
really
upset
looking to
if
get
we-
at, is I think they're great signs.
Yeah, they are beautiful.
And, they lasted a long time
They did.
considering what they were made of.
Yeah.
But, we need to do something that
Yes.
enhances them. And even if the one on the south side of the city, do we have that right-of-way that's north of Montecito? Is that our right-of-way where the sidewalk comes out south of where that plaza is
Mm-hmm.
across? I mean, because you could actually put something there, and that could be your visibility point, instead of having it on the right-hand side as you're going north. There's nothing that says it can't be on the left-hand side, where we've got more area, and it might be more visible.
Okay,
So we just might want to look at that.
okay. So I think, honestly, I think that timeline will probably be at the end of this fiscal year to start really looking at that and start bringing in ideas to council and probably will go through the CRA for design. Largely because we'll want to get through Roosevelt and things like that before we start on something like that. But we are looking at it, and that has been a consideration of moving forward.
Good, thank you.
The A1A Streetscape project, the $400,000 is funded already. It's sitting in reserves, waiting for FDOT's local funding agreement that will be sent to us. Actually, it might be a joint participation agreement. We're trying to figure out how we want to do that. So that will be only paying for the mast arms. Everything else has been funded through other sources like the TPO or DOT itself. We also have a $50,000 funded this year that we were recommending so we can begin designing the bus stop locations. The bus stops were one of the amenities that we wanted that were excluded from the DOT process. So we would like to get started on that design so we can have them installed at the same time as DOT's project. The $250,000 in fiscal year 16-17 would include landscaping for all of the medians throughout the DOT right-of-way, and then any other sidewalk gaps that we feel that we can get through and acquire with easements and right-of-way. So once DOT's project's in and we recognize some critical areas, we can begin the negotiations with any adjacent property owners. DOT only accepts right-of-way now. I forgot about that. But so we would have to acquire that right-of-way and then construct any gaps. And we could do that through just permitting and construct it ourselves. So we may not use all that. There may be a need for more, but it's almost impossible to tell right now. It's just a good budget. We know that we're going to expend at least $100,000 in landscaping alone. So.
And what was the $50,000 for again?
The design for the bus stop locations.
This is actually going into the plan, right? This is inserted in?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea for us to outline these, what these items are and put them in here, like, just so it's very clear what this money is for.
I agree.
Where is
At
that?
least on this sheet here, we have these figures. I think if we put in here phase one and blah, 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 and then just with the 50,000 is for the design for the, so anybody that looks at this page knows exactly what that money is for.
I would say yes and no to that, because if you have 50,000 and you dedicate it to the design, then you're going to have to spend it all on that design, and you may have 24,000 spent on the design and move that money to the next. You know what I mean? So you'd want that flexibility.
Except for the last sentence above the table, it says as long as the projects conform to the goals and objectives in Chapter 3, some project features may be altered, added, or deleted. So there's your out.
Right. Some project features may be altered, added, deleted. So you may come in and say, okay, we're not going to do medians anymore. But if you have a specific funding amount that's only specified in the plan for that one thing, then, and you get done with that one thing and you have that money sitting there, we're going to have to do a plan amendment to move it.
But let me go this on your same thing. The sentence before that actually says estimated costs, which that's what these are, estimated costs may differ from the final amounts as projects are designed, bid, and completed. So it doesn't have to be 50,000, because it says right, the sentence before, the one you just brought up, says that it may not be 50,000, it may be more, may be less than that estimated cost.
So what I'm trying to say is, in this description, you have a two-phase project will provide sidewalk, medians, landscaping, crosswalks, and so on. if we say phase one, or, I'm sorry, if we say phase two will be funded in 15-16 and will be dedicated to the design of the bus stops, and we only spend 24,000 of that, what
It's
are we,
okay, according to this.
To redo your plan, right?
well, what are you going to use the other 26,000 for, or the, that's what I'm saying, is I'd rather have the flexibility to just move it on to the next item.
You have, those two sentences above give you total wiggle room. Add, change, delete. Let me work with you, because we talked about this, let me work with you on some wording so that we present a clearer picture while still addressing your concerns.
Can I ask an attorney his opinion, how he would like to hear it? Just,
I am, no.
I understand. I know. I'm not meaning anything by that.
I stayed at the American Express.
Last night, right, yeah, Holiday Inn.
Because of the, and this is something that does come up frequently with CRAs, because of the requirements that everything be in accordance with the plan, that heavy set requirement, generally, the more specific you are as to how things work, or even when there's wiggle room, the more you're expected to conform to that plan. So if something happens or changes, you can be in a bind, especially if you can't change the plan quickly. So what I usually recommend when we have this come up is make a description, but as you see here, it's already described, and you do have the plan on the side. Getting too specific can get you in a bind in the future. That being said, of course, anything can be amended, so it's really up to you how you want to proceed.
I can still work with Courtney on some language that will address these concerns and give us a little more clarity. Because that was my impression of this write-up also. It's kind of general.
But was it general for a reason, so that when there was funds left over, they were easily moved to a different project without having to totally redo a plan? So that was just my, hiccup on it.
Is I think there's other information in here somewhere that addresses the A1A streetscape project. Does it itemize that $50,000 anywhere else, or we're just being very generic, in other words?
I think that's what you don't want, right, is to itemize it to the penny, so that depending on where the project comes in at, that excess money can be put towards another project in there.
I'm not doubting any of that, but if I'm looking at this as a citizen and I see phase one or phase two is $50,000, I would at least like to have some idea what it's about, whether it's the total amount being used. I mean, if there's a way we can phrase it to say possibly 100% of the bus stops, but maybe not. I don't know how you put it in there.
And I can work with her, and then we can have Attorney Hand review what we come up with. You're comfortable with it?
I would just say, simply put, going back to when you started this conversation, is there's nothing in here that says bus stops in any of this description right here at all, regardless of whether we're saying the $50,000 is for the bus stop or not. But there's nothing here that says says bus stops. My point being is, if it said bus stops in there, and the fact that you just told me that 50,000 is going towards the bus stops, for me at least, I would know that, oh yeah, 50,000 was for bus stops. But if you ask me to look at this a month from now, and I look at that and I say, what was that $50,000 for? Because it doesn't say bus stops anywhere in that description, I'm not going to remember we said that. So I'm not trying to get specific and tie it to say that the bus stop is $50,000, but it would be nice at least if it said bus stops, just enough as a memory jogger to say, oh yeah, I remember, or that's what that part of that money's going for. Or like we just said, if a resident should ask me, at least I can say that 50,000, that's what we're budgeting towards bus stops. Otherwise, I'm going to look at it and say, I don't remember what that 50,000 was for, without being too restrictive.
Well, that's the thing, is we want to, and if you look at the previous plan, we were just the same way, is, we want to make sure that, the A1A project morphs every day. We get a new estimate, a new directive from DOT, and we have to change a way we're going to do something, so, we run into a ditch and you can't put the sidewalk there. So it changes constantly, and, if we get too descriptive, then we have to come in and change the plan constantly. And this plan is more descriptive than any other redevelopment plan I've read in Brevard County. I mean, it's very specific. So we just, want to be, I think adding, bus shelter pads in there would be a great idea. But I would be very reluctant to, in this particular one, particularly with A1A, to assign design funds directly to the 50,000 right now, because we don't know yet.
Can we be, where it says Phase 2 will be funded in 15-16 and 16-17, can we be very generic and say, and we'll include things like bus stop, pads, landscaping, and other things that may come up in the design process? And just be very generic.
Yes.
At least it says something.
Yes.
Not to interrupt, sorry. I think that's what Member Gott was saying, is we're going to work on the wordsmithing of it so it covers those particular items.
Words such as, that kind of thing, that leaves.
Because obviously,
Let
in other plans.
Lorraine, do her thing. I mean, that's where I think we're going to go.
Okay.
Okay, so let me ask this question then. Since we're going to change this piece of paper, what are we voting on?
We're voting,
Well, what I'm saying is,
we're voting on whether or not we want to go ahead and have a plan, a 2016 plan amendment drawn up and voted
right,
on.
does this make, I'm going to just throw it out here, by not having this, I'm going to say the correct way, but have it the way we want it to read, is it limiting us from voting on this tonight? Does you feel comfortable? Okay. Just want to
Not only
make sure.
that, but I quickly went through all of the document, and, you can't just change one part of any document. You have to look at the document in totality to make sure it hangs together. In doing that, I came across several places that will also need to be amended to fit with what we're trying to accomplish with a 2016 amendment.
I just, and I'm sure you understand just the thing of the flexibility, and the reason I bring that up, I've been to a few DOT meetings, and boy, the drastic change from one sitting to another to 24 hours later when they send you a memo, I've learned has been quite interesting. So what I want to make sure is we're flexible enough that we're not slowing up the process from
Because I'm still arguing that they should be putting in the bus shelter pads. You know what I mean? So we may get it done, and we may not have to use the 50,000 for design. So, we're still fighting that fight. Mm-hmm.
And it's my understanding that we're not voting on this tonight per se. We're voting, as I understand it, on whether to proceed with the 2016 plan amendment. Is that correct understanding? It's not.
And that's why I asked the question.
You'd be recommending approval to council to adopt the amendment, is what we're asking.
Right, so that would include,
All of the
my
changes.
feeling is all the changes
But
this
this
did.
is not ready, because this whole document, there's several places in this document that need to be updated.
Can I ask this question here? Are we under any time constraint by the state or county that this plan has to be amended by a certain date right now?
Not by the state, no, it would stall the design of the bus shelters, and it would stall the design of the beach access signage, but that's...
By a meeting?
Correct, so it's okay.
So the first part
yeah.
of January, that our meeting in January is when we would
Right,
anticipate
so I
coming
just
back
have
with
to,
this.
we would just stop the advisory board has asked that we, hire a certain consultant to do the design of the beach access signage, but we would just not do that yet until this is done.
I want to make a motion, see if we can do this. And you can tell me if I'm solid ice here.
Sure.
I move that we recommend to the city council that they adopt a 2016 redevelopment plan amendment that includes these specific projects and dollar numbers in Table 7, the remaining redevelopment projects, and all other associated changes throughout the rest of the 2014 redevelopment plan.
Okay, and in that motion, do you want to provide any direction to staff to prepare it? Okay,
Well, we'll say staff, just for the purpose.
Staff.
Okay.
okay. That'll be fine, because in that case, we'll go before council in a new form, and you have to adopt by ordinance. So it would have 2 readings, and it may change within those readings. So yes, it would still could be in a working form or a more completed form. It's just making a recommendation to make a change rather than saying, here's the final product, and then clearly it's still not a private project, because council can make changes accordingly. So yes, that would be fine.
And
I'll
then
I'll second that.
Okay. And then we can bring the plan to the council in January so that we're staying on the schedule that you had hoped to have.
That would be great, yes.
Okay.
Perfect. So I have a motion by Member Gott, second by Vice Chair Montanaro. Okay, at this time, I'll open up for public comments.
Joanne Regan, citizen. I always download the agenda packet and read it beforehand, and I had the same concerns. It seemed like the later chapters in the document were updated, and the more recent, or the earlier chapters were not. And some of you may have already noted these things. I thought that on page 3, where the history was, I thought that maybe it could be a little clearer that the CRA is being sunsetted. The last one was when the city had the meetings about updating the CRA, but since then, council has said, let's sunset it. So I thought that could be in the history. Just a suggestion. And if that were true, then it would also affect Appendix A, because whatever resolution it was that sunsetted, it would also be a relevant resolution for Appendix A. On page 5, it says that Section A, wastewater. No, that's not page 5.
No, it's not.
I'm looking for the facade grant amounts. I'm sorry, it's page 5, section C. The facade grants, that quotes a figure of $15,000, which is what I think the monument sign amount was, but since then it's grown to, I guess, 65, since in this budget year we gave the Allison 65,000.
So what's your point?
That section C where it says 15,000, I think that's an outdated number. I think it should say 65.
I think that's just talking about the former completed redevelopment projects.
Through 2012.
Yes.
On that.
Right.
But your point is taken, because that page does need to be updated, and so that it would be 2002 through 2015.
And then we could add that one
and then
facade
we could
grant.
change the 15 to 65.
I would actually add a new facade grant section. We'll talk about that, though.
Okay.
Because then you're differentiating between the old one and the new one, which are very drastically different, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the wastewater part was on page 16. And that final paragraph, when it talks about access to sanitary sewer, and I think that concern has gone away.
Oh, yeah. That's a good catch.
I don't know where you are.
On page 16,
The third
A.
paragraph under wastewater,
4 oceanfront properties on Shell
It's
does
already
not.
been taken care of.
you could say prior to 2015 for oceanfront property, you know, so we just want to update that to show that we made that accomplishment.
I still have to go through this entire.
I understand, and I'm sure you'll catch these, but I'm just putting in my list so that if you don't catch them, I can mention it. On page 18, I just want to mention how proud I am that we are talking, for such a small municipality, to be talking about complete streets. I bet that we, thanks to our city manager, I bet that we're ahead of the curve for a lot of cities that we're even thinking about this now. I mean, I'm not sure that other places are really working on complete streets, so I'm proud that we are, particularly as limited assets as we have. On page 18 also, that talks about the facade grants, objective 3.1. That also quotes facade grants of 50, but it's 50 plus however many additional lots a person has.
Yeah,
Or businesses.
we should add that.
On page 22, I don't have the same list that you do, the updated list. I just have the one that was on the web. But it says the Civic Center, and did I not read that because that piece of property on the corner of Jackson and South Patrick had been purchased, that's going to affect the Civic Center renovation?
No, we had in the 2015 amendment, or 2014 amendment, I'm sorry, had a project for the DRS Center. And
Oh, right,
and in
right.
that, we recommended to delete that because with the purchase and renovation of that old bank building, we wanted to acquire that building. And so the substantiality of the project went away. And the only thing really left is maintenance, and it just doesn't meet the statutory requirements of Chapter 163 anymore.
I just mixed up the Civic Center and the
Yeah,
DRS. Page 24, is that truly, that intersection graphic, is that being considered?
Not in any projects we have now. The advisory board wanted to leave these graphics in there just to kind of give some ideas on what we could achieve.
Because that seems like a muddy, dirty maintenance issue, just having cars run through there. It just seems like it would constantly be getting dirty. I vote no on that. Also, I know that the CRA has talked about having lighted street signs, and I know along A1A it would be tempting to have those lighting street signs because they're big and they're bright, but they're only big and they're only bright when they're not faded and sun damaged and the power is on. So if we do go with lighted lights, I certainly hope that we would go with also a, what do you call it when you paint them and it's reflective?
Reflective.
Okay. You passed the test. I also hope that we have a backup reflective one for those times when we are without power. And I think I understood, this is my last comment, I think I understood on the new list, the bus shelters are going to be added.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment? Hearing none, back to the board.
I'll call your attention to page 27, where it talks about the Satellite Beach Comprehensive Plan, and it gave a date for the 2014 amendment, that the Comprehensive Planning Advisory Board determined that this plan amendment conforms to the comp plan, so we need to get their blessing on this amendment also.
We will be doing that between your first reading and the second reading. Is that okay with you all? Okay. I did just want to point out some other changes, if you don't mind, because they are a pretty big amendment from the previous. With the Civic Center, we divided that up into 3 sections, with design and then construction over 2 years, largely because of the cost. I wanted to also point out that we increased the cost of Jackson Avenue, and we did that largely because of the problems on Jackson Avenue with the flooding. So we know that we're going to have a stormwater component there, and we're going to have to pipe some of that water out at some point. So we increased the cost of that. The clubhouse reconstruction, and that's another one that we increased the cost of this project substantially. Because the building that's there is, completely, it's not a real usable building. We're going to have to redo that, and we think we are looking at realigning the footprint of that building as well. So we increased the cost of that construction, and then we also increased the cost of the design component of it. The design will be rather expensive because it's an architectural design as well. And then also the Gemini Park project, we added the design component to that prior to the construction. largely just to keep us on track and on schedule, so we don't have to rush into the design and have that done the same year as the construction. And that's it.
The Civic Center project decreased considerably.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, that is a good point to point out. There are some projects that are being done in the same time that we are still paying out funds to the county and the city. So that year is a tough year in terms of funding. The second issue is that with the Civic Center, we have to be careful of what we're changing in maintenance and what we're changing and what we're adding to the Civic Center as a, component, like if we're going to add a, kitchen component or a new room for, like a dance studio, whatever we're doing. Because we can't use CRA funds for maintenance dollars. So we'll be looking at the city's CIP to complement the Civic Center funds. Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not in any statutory problems there, because the Civic Center, since it's a city building, is one of the more complicated ones. Like with the clubhouse, that's no doubt, we're knocking it down and reconstructing it, so that's easy. This is a little different because it's a renovation.
And I think it's worth noting that Crowdy Park used to be on the list in the 2014 amendment, and that's now been dropped off because the plans on that have been greatly downgraded. And Courtney was telling me that that's, or I guess it's in our that will be funded with capital assets fund. Right. So it's no longer considered a redevelopment project, but we will still be doing something to improve Crowdy Park.
Right, yes.
And we think that, FERDAP grants are available now again, so we think that we can start applying for grants for some of these projects to complement our funds as well. So we'll be doing that.
Okay. Thank you. Further discussion?
Thanks for catching us these
Mm-hmm.
Hearing none? No?
Mark Kramer?
Yes.
Steve Osborne?
Yes.
Helen Montanaro?
Yes.
Lorraine Dodd?
Yes.
Sharon Katina?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6, adoption of minutes, November 4th, 2015. Have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion by,
As submitted.
okay. I have a motion by Vice Chair Montanaro, second by Member Gott. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lenore?
Mark Kramer?
Yes.
Steve Osborne?
Yes.
Lorraine Dodd?
Yes.
Helen Montanaro?
Yes.
Sharon Katina?
Yes, motion passes, or minutes accepted. Thank you. Any further business? So as understood, Lorraine, you're going to work with Courtney on the language.
And we'll have a plan amendment, the 2016 amendment in January.
At our count, right. And which will be two readings anyway, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we're on schedule.
Yes.
Okay. Any further business? Okay. Meeting adjourned.